It's no secret that it's been a long while since the last time that I wrote a game review. Far too long in fact, and I have decided to rectify that problem. And there's no better way than to get back in the saddle and cover one of the most anticipated games of 2014. And that game is Dragon Age Inquisition. There's no doubt that a lot of people have been both looking forward to and fearing how BioWare's latest endeavor into the Dragon Age universe will turn out. Will it soar into the heavens, flying over the competition, or tumble into the darkness of the deep roads like so many others? Let's find out. There's no doubt about it, Inquisition is a beautiful game. With some of the most impressive graphics that I've seen in some time, it's always a pleasure to fire up the game and just explore the world around me. It is just simply that breathtaking. The armor can look both crisp and shiny, as well as worn and thrashed. The landscapes are beautiful and just seem to pull you right in. At times, I just found myself wandering and exploring the map around me. Everything from the wildlife to the way that the ocean waves crested and thrashed against the shorelines made me feel as though I was really there and wanted to see what else this world had to offer. And for the most part, the game runs very well on my system. Much better in fact than some less impressive titles. Ones that for some reason, that despite having far less detailed objects and textures, give me similar or worse frame rates. That's not to say that the graphics are perfect. Far from it. In fact, in my earliest playthroughs I found my game crashing in certain situations during the early game, many of which seemed to be when the game was switching between cutscenes and the rendered world. That's an annoying problem, especially when you consider that at the beginning of the game you are cut between numerous scenes back and forth before you can even take control of your character to play and save. Early on, things can also feel a little disjointed as well, considering those scenes are rendered and limited to 30 frames a second, while the rest of the game has no such limitations. Thankfully, once you get past that, the number of cutscenes and this issue are greatly reduced later on. So, overall the game looks beautiful and runs very smooth. Though, you might have to do some tweaking to find the best balance that works for your system. The game still looks really good, no matter the settings that you choose. With that, and the issues that I mentioned in mind, I give the graphics a fine-looking B+. Many people, myself included, were disappointed with the storyline of the previous title, Dragon Age 2, where Origins was vast, epic, and had both world and character developments on many levels. Its sequel lacked the same effect. What once felt huge and drew the player in became minuscule and unimportant in the story, with a realm defined by the battle between the Darkspawn and Wardens. Thankfully in Inquisitions, BioWare righted that ship and took things back on course. From the beginning, you are taken on a journey that shows how your character, the Inquisitor, can go from somebody just trying to survive to becoming something so much more in the blink of an eye, and how something that appears to be an accident can be so much more in the grand scale of things. Veterans of the series will feel right at home here as you're brought on an adventure that takes you back to some familiar places and visit some old friends along the way. That's not to say that it's the same old tale. No, in the years that you've been away, a great deal has changed in the realm of Theodos. New players are free to begin their adventures with the game's canon, or take advantage of the Dragon Age Keep website, a place that lets them build their own story and make the choices that they would have made in the previous titles. While this option is nice, it does add some of its own challenges and frustrations, such as having to remember all of the choices that you made in the previous games due to importing issues. There are over 300 of them for those keeping count. So, those looking for a strong storyline in a vast world that also draws close to your heart will find that here. I am pleased to say that BioWare has done some of their best work in this game. And with that in mind, I give the story a well-deserved A. And what is a world without the sounds that fill it? Nothing but a silent void of emptiness. Fortunately, Inquisition's world is neither silent nor empty. Each and every moment, my speakers were filled with some of the fullest and most ambience-building sounds that help define this fantasy realm. It's quite refreshing to step into a world that has the sound banks that really help the world come alive, even in those quiet moments of silence when things were here and still. The little signs of ambience to trick your ears into believing that you are really there really shine through, such as the crackle of a fire pit, distant howls, or the sounds of rustling brush, and that's not even considering the music. That in itself is even better than the sounds. In fact, it's probably the best soundtrack that I've heard in a game in a very long time. With a wide array of high-quality songs, Inquisition does a wonderful job of defining moments of fear, excitement, tension, and so much more. I dare any that have played this game to say that you are not touched by that moment when A Dawn Will Rise played with those vocals. In short, the sound and music in this title not only did the job, but slayed the dragon, and in my book, they earn a well-deserved A. As with all games, one of the most important questions that you can ask is, how does it play? Do the controls feel natural in my hands? Important questions for any game, much less a Dragon Age title. Where Origins was heavy on the strategy and roles, its first sequel shifted as far away from that as possible, choosing rather to focus on action than strategy to appeal to a wider crowd, a move that has both positive and negative points to it. While it made the game feel more action-packed, a lot of the strategy and complexity of the combat and combinations was lost in the transition from turns and rolls to action. Not to mention, some of that action just felt a bit disjointed and not quite fluid, as though the game wasn't quite ready to fully make that transition into full action mode. Inquisition, on the other hand, has no such hiccups. The action feels crisp and fast. The spells flash on your screen the moment that you press your fingers to the keys. The swords, bows, and daggers stab and fling the moment and the ways that you expect them to in a beautiful display of destruction. And to top it off, we see the return of the strategic camera mode, something the traditional crowd was waiting for. That would almost be perfect if it worked the way we all wanted it to. No, this isn't the mode we were all used to that allowed you to survey the scene from a bird's eye view and easily click the target or action that you wanted to pull off. Instead, what we have here is a mode obviously designed with consoles in mind that never quite made that transition to PC very well. Replacing that bird's eye view is a fixed camera that barely ventures more than a few feet above your character, oftentimes obscuring just what you're looking at and where your target lies. That's not so bad, some might say. You can just move your camera around and change the perspective. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. No, rather than letting you roam the battlefield view, the camera is locked into whatever place or angle that you put it at when you first entered the strategic mode, leaving you guessing what to do next. It's not until you choose your character will the camera even think of moving. And just how do you do that, you ask? Why, with WASD, of course. That's right, to make your strategic attack on a battlefield that you can't really see your only course of action is to select a party member and move them with your keyboard as your view is pointed downward just above the character head. Somehow, somebody didn't quite think that one through. Thankfully, you aren't forced to play that way all the time. It was a big enough headache that I hardly ever touched that mode, and that's coming from a player who loves to play strategic situational combat. At the least, the action combat and movement are nearly perfect. Well, aside from one thing, the mounts. If you're anything like me, the moment that they announced there would be rideable horses and other creatures in Theodos, I was excited and overjoyed. The thought of riding and exploring a vast open world filled my mind with dreams. Unfortunately, those dreams came crashing down the moment that I unlocked my first steed. Hoping to feel something just a bit like Red Dead Redemption or even Skyrim, what I got instead was a ride that felt more frustrating than fun. Sure, it can get you from point A to B just fine, but that's only if you go in a perfectly straight line. Turning or running into other objects is a literal pain in the butt. Much of the time, I found myself stuck on a branch, fence post, or even cavern wall that was nowhere near my mount. And the turning bit, pushing the controls either left or right produces almost no result, or a drastic turn out of nowhere with no real consistency. It's like trying to control a big rig that's pulling a couple trailers behind it. Oh, I need to turn right in a couple minutes? Better start gradually creeping that direction now just to be safe. Either that, or send this right out to pasture. So with that being said, the controls and gameplay are a mixed bag. If you love action combat and big fights, you'll be thrilled. However, if you want to play in the strategic pause mode, be prepared to be frustrated and annoyed, and also be prepared for quite a ride when it comes to the mounts. With all of that in mind, I give the gameplay a B. The action and fights are fun, but the other major aspects need some serious polishing or a better PC port. Okay, here is the big one. The complete package. How are Dragon Age Inquisition's pieces put together? Are they joined together in all the right ways, forming a beautiful masterpiece, or crammed in so tight and misplaced into a big mess? Left and right across the internet, this game is winning award after award, nominated repeatedly as Game of the Year for 2014, as people rave. And I have to say that I agree with him. Sure, the mounts are clunky, and the strategic mode can be a pain in the butt, but everything else about this title is fantastic. A gripping storyline, deep and interesting characters, a vast world, and a beautiful soundtrack. It's all here. The very things that we were craving and was missing from its predecessor. It's nice to see that BioWare hasn't quite forgotten what made their games great. A great storyline and deep characters. Suffice it to say, Dragon Age Inquisition is not only my game of the year, but by far the best and most complete game in the franchise, and it should be a must-have for any BioWare or RPG fan. So all in all, Inquisition earns a well-deserved A. See you soon, Inquisitors.